everyone, time now for another pickup video and a little bit of a rambling. Last weekend of my vacation, been off for 2 weeks. It's been really nice, but I got to hit the road running next week. Gonna be heading out to Tennessee, then down to Texarkana week after next before Christmas. But I did go out and do some hunting this week. I did find some great finds. I found a Sega Saturn import game for $5, which has really stoked. I'll show that here later on. But first, got the next recording of the ColecoVisions podcast done this weekend. It'll be coming out probably before Christmas. We're going to be talking about the game Santa Must Save Christmas. That was a homebrew. I got a video describing the gameplay and stuff. You can go. I'll link to it down below in the show notes. But we also share some Christmas memories. Got a few bits and pieces of news and stuff like that. Just a real short episode. Also, going to be putting out the Channel F Files podcast here very soon. We got a really cool interview with Mr. Nick Talsfor, who was the designer who designed the actual physical components of the Channel F, who worked with Jerry Lawson. So that's going to be neat to finally get out there. He's not been interviewed before in an audio format, so that'd be kind of neat. On the Arcade USA front, I got some more videos I'm trying to get out for that. Some classic arcade games, things like that. I'm pretty behind in making videos right now. But all in all, been a pretty uneventful vacation, which that's how I like. So let's get on to the pickups. First thing I picked up, well actually it's not a pickup yet. I did a joystick modification for the host of the new podcast coming out, the SNES podcast. He was asking me to make him a microswitch modded Atari 2600 controller. So clickety 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 clickety. So got him a modified controller here with micro switches for his Atari 2600. For my buddy Scott, who's my co-host on the Channel F Files, and he also does the Retro Gaming Roundup podcast, he wanted me to find him a Sega Saturn, so I found him a Sega Saturn here. Take that up to him. Came with, well, I gave him one of my games I had a spare of, Hang On GP. So he has something to play. He's been trying to find a Sega Saturn, and they've been pretty expensive up around his neck of the woods, so I was able to find one fairly cheap. Next thing I picked up for my Atari 1700 was a Atari 1700 joystick. I know these things are terrible, and they cramp your hands, but I just did a modification where I put micro switches on one of these. So I got a micro switch modded 1700 controller now. So I have a link to that video down below as well. Next thing I picked up for the Game Gear was Miss Pac-Man. Pretty nice port of Miss Pac-Man. Plays pretty well. Of course, you know, you can't see the whole maze at once. It scrolls around. But it plays really nice. It's very bright and colorful. It's a nice port of Miss Pac-Man. It even has the cut scenes and everything. So that's kind of cool. I don't have a Game Gear anymore because I gave it to my buddy Ian, who does the Great Bit blog over in the UK. He was wanting a Sega Game Gear. No, yeah, Sega Game Gear. Did I say Saturn before? Ugh. Anyway, he wanted a Sega Game Gear. I had one that I just picked up to do the video on about modifying the, putting new capacitors in it and stuff like that to improve the screen and the sound and all that stuff. So I just sent that to him so he has something. I just picked these up to use like for prizes or put into the retro junk box when I participate in that kind of stuff. Next thing I picked up for the Game Gear is Baku Baku, a really fun puzzle game. Basically, it's kind of like columns or Tetris. You have to line up the different fruits and different things that the animals will drop down and eat to drop the bricks down. It's a pretty fun game. They got this for the Saturn too. I've been looking for it, but I went ahead and picked it up on the Game Gear. Next thing I picked up was Arcade Classics for the Game Gear. Has Ultra Pong, Missile Command, and Centipede on there. Not too bad of games. Centipede plays fairly well, but kind of slow. Don't know if that's the emulation, because I'm playing all these on emulation on the screen up here. not on actual hardware. So it's probably the emulation that's making things run slow. Then I found another game from my Nintendo collection, my NES collection. I picked up Break Time for the NES. Pretty fun pool game. I like pool games in general, so usually when I find a game like this on the NES, I'll pick it up. This one's in really good shape. It's almost in perfect condition. And what's really cool is it played the very first time I put it in my NES. Usually it goes blinky, 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 blinky. You got to clean off the contacts. Next thing I picked up for the PC, because I can't get this game for my PS2 because my PS2 is not region modded where I can play import games on it. So I picked it up on the PC. Space Invaders Anniversary. This is awesome. It has a bunch of different Space Invader games in there. You know, from the original to the Color Invaders. There's a Versus Mode Invaders game in there. But the main reason that I wanted to pick this up was due to the 3D Space Invaders game. Right there. I saw this in an arcade video a long time ago, and I was like, whoa, what is that? I didn't know they made a 3D Space Invaders coin-op. I've not seen one in person. So I went looking, and I found that on the PlayStation 2 they had Space Invaders Anniversary, and it was on there. I was like, well, darn. Then I found out that it was released on the PC as well. And this runs fine on Windows 7. I got it installed on my computer. I got Windows 7 and it runs perfectly fine. And it's actually a really fun game. I like how you sit behind your cannon and you're shooting up at the invaders as you march back and forth. Now, one of the neat game aspects here is if you shoot the flying saucer, it'll actually amp up your base. It'll move a little bit faster and it'll get like a shield. So you can take a hit and you won't die. It's pretty cool. Then for the Sega CD, I just picked this up mainly just to get a box that was good. It was 99 cents. It's double switch for the Sega CD. And it's one of those full motion videos, point and click on cameras adventure thing, like Night Trap was, that kind of thing. It's not that good of a game. But it was 99 cents. And like I said, I wanted it for its case. Because typically these cases are broken. So I pick these up when I find them cheap to replace some of my broken Sega Saturn cases. So that's not going to hang around very long. Then the best find I had this week was Terra Cresta 3D for the Sega Saturn. It's an import game, so you're going to have the Action Replay cartridge or a modified Saturn to play this game. If you like the arcade game Moon Cresta, it's kind of like that, but it's called Terra Cresta because you're down on a planet instead of being out in space. Gameplay's basically the same. You can pick up power-ups, different pieces of your ship that you can add to yourself to give you more firepower, like more firepower to the forward, more firepower to the back. If you hit the B button in the middle, it'll actually make like a power-up kind of thing where you'll split all apart and you have multiple shots shooting all over the place. A lot of fun. I like the 3D effects. It's got a great soundtrack to it. And it's a lot of fun to play. Made by Nichibutsu, the actual people who made the arcade game. That was a really cool pickup. This was in a box of various PlayStation 1 and Sega Dreamcast, stuff like that, games, and they were like $5 a piece. So I went digging through there, and this was in the very bottom. Well, not in the very bottom, towards the bottom. I was like, ooh, awesome. So that's all the pickups for this week. I'm looking, making sure. Yes, that's all the pickups. So until next time, don't know if I'll have one next week or not. I'll try and make another video before Christmas. But anyway, have a happy holiday and catch you later.